Hey everyone, welcome to the Racers 360 in-depth track breakdown of Sonoma Raceway. SCCA runoffs are coming up, big time event here at the Sonoma. We wanted to kind of get this out there for anyone that drives there, especially for you guys going out there and competing in the runoffs. Good luck to everyone out there. Make sure you come and check out Racers 360 where we can give you access to the very best coaches in the world, but we do it remotely through our one-lap analysis service and our race analysis service. All you have to do is send us your video, any camera system at all, and send it in, Dropbox, YouTube link, anything like that, and a coach will go through your video and give you personalized coaching for only $99. It's the cheapest, most successful way. But without further ado, let's go ahead and do our track breakdown. You'll see some of the tools that we'll use in our one-lap analysis. So going into Sonoma here, first corner, you want to apex very nicely. Out of here, get those hands opened up. We really want to use all of the road and be out here to get our radius nice and open, heading up the hill into turn 2. So as we apex the wall, open our hands, and then we'll let the car be nice and free, coming out here, be even about where we are right now. When we have an uphill, we want our turn-in coming early and rely on that uphill to slow down the car so you can bring in a little bit more entry speed so we can take advantage of having the uphill to slow down the car. So nice, slow hands is our turn-in. We want to be pretty close to the inside as we come to the bridge, but I'd still like to be wider than where we see our driver right now, maybe about a half car width wider. How you know you've taken this right is we really want to apex actually later than this. So if you're apexing the start of this curve right here, that's going to be incorrect. We actually want to apex about midway through this curve here on our left, and that allows us to set up and keep it left a little bit longer so when we turn back to the right, the radius for turn 2 is more open. So we want to be turning in pretty early, but we don't want to apex too early after we cross the bridge. To be able to do that, we need really slow hands coming up the hill. So it's a nice, slow, progressive turn-in. And as we arrive here, you'll see a big difference. If we hit it right, the angle of our car as we come through here will be looking much more in this direction, where you can see our driver right now is looking much more in this direction, which makes it harder as we start to roll in more and more entry speed to keep it left. And as we go a little bit farther forward, you'll see what ends up happening is our driver here doesn't keep it all the way to the left side of the road and ends up being too early into turn 2 as well. So backing it up, you'll see the edge of the curve over here. I would like to have my left front tire more to the left, about towards the end of that curve, so that we're opening up that radius for turn 2 and not getting in there too early. See, right now, we're in too early. Once again, you'll see our driver apexing the start of this curve. I really want to apex just a little bit later. You know, we have this crest in the hill, so you don't want to apex too late. So I want to be apexing about a car length later than this, just before the thickest part of this curve. That's where I want my right front tire to come in and get this apex curve, and no initial throttle until we get to that point. If you're getting to throttle earlier than that, you're not, A, not rolling enough speed, and B, you're probably getting to full throttle too late because of that. So be disciplined, no initial throttle until the apex here into turn 2. Once we get there, unwind the wheel, use all of the track on exit. Very, very nice. Setting up for turns 3A here. Nice turn in. Again, good marker. It's very different, really depends on what type of car you're driving, but the end of this curve here on our right, that's typically a decent example of where we want to turn in. Once again, it's uphill, so we want that early turn in and let the uphill help you slow down the car. So we're probably slightly early here on this video, but not bad. Nice apex point right here in the thickest part of the curve. You want to hold it a little bit left out of here. You don't want to be perfectly along the left-hand side. You see here, we're just off of it. I want to see that because that means you're probably getting to the limit of the car and the car's taking you a little bit away from that. But you do want to hold it left past this curve to set up for the uphill kind of cresty. I like to call this 3B, and that's what most drivers call it. I know some people will call it 4, but for me, 4 is the right-hander that's next. And most official track maps, this is 3B. It's blind. It's really difficult to know where the car's going to end up. And there's really no great examples of where to look, where to place the car. All I would say here is hold it left out of 3A and wait about a car length or two before coming back to the right. And again, you really want to make sure you're not apexing any earlier than the thickest part of this curve. It's especially important here. Rather err on apexing late here than early, because if you apex too early, you're going to run out of road really quick after the crest of the hill. So beautiful apex point. The car in front of us is actually in the perfect spot right here. As he comes in, nice job getting the right side tire right on that curb, exactly where I want it. The aspect car we're looking for, the onboard camera is in slightly early, but it's got a pretty good trajectory here. You'll see using all the curb, nice back to throttle here. As you crest, you'll see nice job using all the road again here on exit. You really don't get to see this exit until you're almost on top of it. So be very disciplined about having a little bit later of an apex there, at least initially, and then work on earlier and early apex and more entry speed. Into turn 4, typically I don't like to talk about brake markers when we're doing a general track breakdown because we're all in very different style of cars. But give or take near the end of this curve is probably going to be a pretty good one. Now it's downhill, so we're going to really struggle for front grip here. Make sure you're trail braking into this, and just the lightest little bit of trail brake will really help get that rotation in the car, keep front weight on the front end. Again, really important, delay that initial throttle until we get down to that apex curve. Nice. There we go. You can see, once again, apexing the kind of middle of this apex curve. It's a little bit hard to see in video, but that's where we want to apex, and that's where we want our initial throttle application to come. Use all of this road exactly like that. That's going to maximize everything for you. Turn 5, pretty easy in most cars. Main thing for me is open up those hands. Use all of the road on exit. I'd like to have seen this driver get out there even earlier. And for me, the main thing in the carousel, we do not want to end up where this car is. You don't want to open all the way back to the right because it's a little off camber and it sets you up incorrectly into the carousel. I want to treat it more like a double apex. So if I could get about mid-road, that's about as far to the right as I want to be at. I mean, I don't want to necessarily have my left side tire all the way to the inside, work it back a little bit, but no wider than mid-road. And you will see here, as we crest over this hill, that's where we want to start to turn in. And my goal here is to sort of apex around here, and then I want enough speed to where the car takes me further out, takes me to about mid-track, and then much later in the corners where I want my second rotation to come, and I only want my initial throttle application coming much farther in the corner as we get to the next apex curve. So you really want to work on braking light here and then rolling enough speed to take you further out. I would like to be even further out than we are right now, about a half car width wider. And then right about here is where I want that second rotation to come. And my initial throttle, I want to save it until we get down to this apex curve. If you're getting the throttle too early, that's going to really cause understeer, and it's not going to allow you to get back to full throttle early enough. So bring in enough entry speed so the car gently takes you wide. Then we add a little bit of brake, get back down, rotating. You're coming in from a wider angle out here, and that's where we want our second apex to come and our initial throttle to come. Oops, let me get that out of the way. So back to throttle here, holding that apex, and your eyes are looking for the exit all the way back in here. I'm looking up, and I'm asking, how early can I start to unwind the wheel? Use all of the road on exit, just like that. We could use a little bit more road in the carousel, a little bit more entry speed, but very, very nice. Now into the hairpin. Most important point of this whole track, to be patient to initial throttle. If you feel like you can't get back to full throttle because of understeer on exit, you're probably picking up that initial throttle way too early. So again, a very great place to practice our double apex, kind of diamond this corner off. I like to turn in a little bit early and less aggressive here. Make a bit of a straighter line, not by much, but just a little bit straighter line here. Really save our rotation to the middle of this corner and then come back on it. What we don't want to see is this kind of late, more aggressive turn in and then a shallower angle, because then you have a harder turn here and a harder turn here, which doesn't allow you to roll the entry speed when you can actually roll a good bit of entry speed here, because we want to use more road. We want to be, I like to have my left side tire. It's hard to see right now, but there's a white line out here. Let the car be free out here, and then what will end up happening is you'll be faster on entry. You might have a little bit slower minimum speed, but then you can really get the car rotated, get to throttle really nicely on exit here. So Ideally, I'm still not getting the throttle. I'm waiting. Now I'm rotating from a farther spot. And then if right about now, as I'm getting the car rotated and I can start to open my hands, that's where I want my initial throttle to come in. So if you use more road in the middle of the corner, the difference here is where this driver's car is looking very much this way, we'll be coming in from a wider angle, looking more this way and able to open our hands, which will really help us get a nice run out into the S's here. Using all the road on exit, very, very nice. Exactly what I want to see. Here, this is just a rhythm section. You want to apex here. I want to get back to where my right side tire is kind of inside of this yellow line here, turning in just past the ends of this last little curb here on the right, give or take. This really, again, depends on the type of car you've got. You know, if you have a very nimble, more downforce car, all your turn-ins will be a lot later here. If you've got more of like a NASCAR, late model, very kind of soft, high horsepower car, you'll want a little bit earlier of a turn-in. Apexing the start of this curve is pretty good. Now here, I want to hold it left longer than the driver is right now, and then turn it back to the right, about a full car length past the end of this curve here on our left, back here. So I want to hold it left, now turn back to the right, so I'm coming in from a wider angle. And once again, our driver here is apexing too early. I want to apex right about the middle of this curve. Get to throttle here, open those hands, use all of the road on exit. That's exactly what we want there once we start apexing later. Fast right-hander here. Again, perfect. You want to be setting up all the way to the left here, all the way to the left. You can often get sucked in too early, saving our turn-in point until about the end of this curbing here. Again, that'll depend a little bit on the type of car, but that's a nice little guideline. Back in, nice apex just past the start of this curve, anywhere from just past the start of this curve to where the car in front of us is apexing is where we want to be. Apex, initial throttle there. Use all of the road on exit. Now coming into the final corner. This is where drivers love to apex too early. I really want to save my apex until the third tire stack. So I can point that out right now. It's a feels like a very late apex. And to get there, it's a very tight corner that's narrow. You really need a nice, slow, progressive turn in here to be able to get this corner correctly. And you want to trail brake deep around this corner so we can save that initial throttle until we're opening our hands. So braking, slow turning. Right about here is a pretty good marker just before this tire wall. Now, I don't want you looking towards that tire wall, but it's not a great marker here. So nice, slow, progressive turn in. You'll see here our driver, apex is too early, they apex here, and now they can't unwind the wheel, and they have so much wheel in the car right now, they're at the limit of it. If we turned in a little bit slower, we're coming in from a wider angle, more progressive, and then we're coming to apex here. The angle of their car, if you can do that, is going to be looking a little bit more, oops, let me get that better drawing, a little bit more in this direction. I like to exaggerate this so you can get a clear picture. Where our driver right now, because he apexed too early, is looking this way, and he can't unwind the wheel. So if they were slower and more progressive and trail brake all the way to this point, they would have a better rotation, a better angle of the car, and then when they're going to throttle, they're going to have less wheel input. They're going to be able to open their hands earlier, which is going to allow them to get to full throttle earlier and scrub less speed. Now, if you're in a lower horsepower car, you can get away with going to full throttle here and still having a lot of wheel in the car, but you're still scrubbing speed. So even if you can go to full throttle and continue to turn, you still want to have a better rotation so you can open those hands and scrub less speed, which is really critical in a lower horsepower car. So saving our apex to that third tire stack, open those hands, use all of the road and exit, really make sure your eyes are up. You want to be opening those hands as early as possible. Getting out to this exit as early as possible is critical. And this final corner just kind of being here, there's really nothing too critical. You can open up a little bit more if you need to set up for it if you're in a higher horsepower car or lower grip car. For the most part, what he just did there was perfect. So that's been our Racers 360 track breakdown here at Sonoma Raceway. If you're looking for more personalized coaching, go to racers360.com. If you send us your video just like this, we'll have a pro coach. We only work with the very best coaches. Go through your video, draw on the screen, talk over it exactly like I was doing here for $99. We have a 48-hour or less turnaround time. and it's really the best way to access pro coaching. Most of our average customer saves between 1 to 3 seconds, and obviously that depends a little bit on where you're starting from, but that has been our average rate of change of time gained from customers. If you're looking for even more in-depth coaching, a little bit more on the racecraft as well as how to find speed, we have our race analysis service. You send us your video from your race. We'll go through the entire race, pick out points, and suggest ways that you can improve your racecraft and speed. That one is $2.99. Go to racers360.com to learn more. We'll see you guys at the track soon.